Alright, so do you guys know what we talked about last week?
Me.
What book? Just say
Ruth.
Which chapter?
2.
Alright, so anyone want to guess what we're doing today?
Ruth 3.
Ruth 3. Right there. Wow, glad you guys are paying attention at least a little bit. So just to catch you guys up on what's been happening so far. So there was a big famine, so there's no food around. So Naomi and Ruth had to move back to Bethlehem, and they also had their husbands die. So they're immigrants now, they got no food, and they got no family, and no kids, which is important for back then. If you didn't have kids, you had no one to take up your line. So they got problems. And then last week, we kind of solved some of those problems. They're back in Bethlehem now, so there's a little familiarity there. And they got food from a field. Do we know whose field?
Boaz.
Boaz, right? They went in Boaz's field to get some food. But we haven't really solved that family issue yet. Right? Their husbands are still dead, they're not remarried, and they still don't have any kids. So we're going to pick up where we left off, reading verses 1 and 2. You'll still be in your booklets and up on the screen. And one day, Ruth's mother-in-law, Naomi, said to her, "My daughter, I must find a home for you where you'll be well provided for." So right there already, we're getting some foreshadowing that we're going to start to see some development in this family issue being solved. Right from the start, so that's where we can see where this is going. Now Boaz, with whose women you have worked, is a relative of ours. Tonight he'll be winnowing barley on the threshing floor. Now, if you don't know what that means, don't worry, I didn't either until I started doing research for it. So we got a picture of what barley is. We got a picture. So yeah, you can see it's got like seeds on it, and then a whole bunch of other garbage. That other garbage is completely useless. So winnowing is when you separate the seed and the chaff, you let the wind blow the chaff away. So all you're left with is the seed. And then threshing is that action of actually separating the seed from the chaff manually. So the threshing floor, I got a picture of that too. Pretty much just a big concrete slab, throw the barley on. Some people would use animals like ox or donkeys to walk on it and grind it up, or you do it yourself. It just might take a little bit longer. Well, this is what Boaz is doing. He's just separating the grain and letting the chaff blow away. So that's just a little context. So now we're going to move on a little bit to verses 3 and 4. And so this is Naomi telling Ruth, "Wash, put on perfume, and get dressed in your best clothes. Then go down to the threshing floor, but don't let him know you are there until he has finished eating and drinking. When he lies down, note the place where he is lying, then go and uncover his feet, lie down, and he will tell you what to do." Now, how many of you in here, if you were trying to get someone to marry with you, this is your go-to plan? No, that's weird. But we know that Naomi wants Ruth to get married, solve that family issue, and Boaz is a good candidate for that. First of all, he's related to Naomi, which will be important later. Keep that in the back of your mind. They're related. That's important. And he's a righteous man. And we saw that in the previous chapters. He's allowing them to take from his harvest, making sure they're taken care of. And that's what he's done so far. So it would make sense that he would be the right guy to marry. But picture this in your head. Naomi has a plan. Boaz is the best option for Ruth to get married. He's going to be working on that floor. He's going to fall asleep. And Ruth's next objective is to sneak up on him, uncover his feet, and lay there. And then Boaz will tell her what to do next. So if I was in Ruth's position here, I'd probably think my mother-in-law was going a little crazy. But that's not what Ruth's response is. So she says, "I will do whatever you say." So she went down to the threshing floor and did everything her mother-in-law told her to do. So here we're again seeing that extreme dedication that Ruth has for Naomi. Just like at the start when they were all moving around and Naomi was like, just go back to Moab. But Ruth was like, nah, I want to be with you. It's that same dedication here. So now she's kind of executing the plan. And when Boaz had finished eating and drinking and was in good spirits, he went over to lie down at the far end of the grain pile. Ruth approached quietly, uncovered his feet, and lay down. In the middle of the night, something startled the man. He turned, and there was a woman lying at his feet. So far, everything is going to Naomi's plan. Seems a little weird, but it's still going there, right? She's doing everything that Naomi had told her. So what's supposed to happen now that she's laid at his feet and Boaz is up? He's supposed to tell her what to do. But I don't know if you guys have any pets, but my cat really likes sleeping with me sometimes. And it can be kind of startling when you wake up because there's a cat trying to get on top of you. So you kind of wake up and you're shaken up. But this is happening to Boaz with a woman. You gotta remember, it's probably dark out. He doesn't know who it is. There's just a woman at his feet. So as she uncovered his feet, it's probably cold out there. He's probably reaching around trying to find the blanket. Boom, woman. But Boaz is supposed to tell her what to do next. But we see Boaz's response, and he just asks, "Who are you?" So now things aren't going according to plan. He's not telling her what to do, which is kind of understandable. But Ruth says, "I am your servant Ruth. Spread the corner of your garment over me, since you are a guardian redeemer of our family." Now, when you word it like that, it sounds kind of weird to us, but I'm going to look at another place in the Bible that uses the same term. It's Ezekiel 16:8. And it says, "Later I passed," this is Jesus talking about Jerusalem as an adulterous wife. So he says, "Later I passed by, and when I looked at you and saw that you were old enough to love, I spread the corner of my garment over you, and covered your naked body. I gave you my solemn oath and entered into a covenant with you, declares the sovereign Lord, and you became mine." So we're talking about marriage here. So essentially, Ruth woke Boaz up in the middle of the night and said, "Hey, will you marry me?" And she also says, "Since you are a guardian redeemer of our family." So that was the importance of Boaz being related to Naomi, because he is a close family guardian redeemer. But what is that? So it's just a close family member that's meant to restore what has been lost. Right? They're just supposed to restore what's been lost. So if let's say you were Ruth, your husband died, you have nothing left. Let's say you had some land back in Moab, and you had to sell it. So now the family's redeemer, they're called to buy back that property so you can have it. And the same thing, if they became a slave, they had to sell themselves in order to make ends meet. The family redeemer is supposed to buy back their freedom. Same thing with kids. If they didn't have any kids, then the family redeemer's job is to marry them and have kids. Because remember, that's important back then. But that's Ruth's request to Boaz, because she wants to see that Naomi is taken care of as well. She doesn't just want to marry Boaz, because why not? She has other motives that she wants Naomi to be taken care of, as well as herself. And again, that's just showing the dedication that Ruth has. So now we're going to see how Boaz responds to, "Will you marry me?" He said, "The Lord bless you, my daughter." Sounds like a great start. I'd love to hear that if I just asked someone to marry me. "But this kindness is greater than which you showed earlier. You have not run after the younger men, whether rich or poor. And now, my daughter, don't be afraid. I will do for you all that you ask. All the people of my town know that you're a woman of noble character." So that is fantastic. So it seems like, Ruth is this woman of noble character. We already know that Boaz is. It just sounds like a match made in heaven. So, let's get married. But then, dun, 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 some trouble arises. So Boaz says, although it is true that I am a guardian redeemer of your family, there is another who is more closely related than I. Stay here for the night, and in the morning, if he wants to do his duty as your guardian redeemer, good, let him redeem you. But if he is not willing, as surely as the Lord lives, I will do it. Lie here until morning. So now there's a chance that Ruth might not marry Boaz. But Boaz is saying, I'll do all that you ask, as in, you will have a guardian redeemer, although it might not be Boaz. Because there's a closer relative, that closer relative has first dibs, if you will. So if he wants to redeem them, it's his right to do so. Or he can turn them down, and then Boaz is saying here, hey, if he doesn't do it, I will. But notice at the end he says, lie here until morning. And in the next verse, we keep going a little bit with that. It says, so she lay at his feet until morning, but got up before anyone could be recognized. And she said, no one must know that a woman came to the threshing floor. So, you gotta remember back then, they didn't have street lamps and sidewalks to light up the way at night. So it's gonna be dark. So when she wakes up, before anyone can get recognized, it's just really dark. Nobody's gonna know who she is if she's just walking around. But that's important, because like we said, they're both supposed to be virtuous people, but they don't need people thinking that they're sleeping together. Right? We already know that it'd be a great match if they got married, but they don't want people thinking that they're being, not virtuous. So there's some more stuff like that in this, some more text through that. There's some tension in there, but that's not really what I'm focusing on tonight. So we'll just kind of go over that. But so now, Boaz is still going to provide. He's going to show that he is going to provide. So he also said, bring me the shawl. It's pretty much just a blanket you throw over your shoulders. It's like an article of clothing. You're wearing it, hold it out. And she did so. He poured into it 6 measures of barley. Now it's not real clear there how much that is, but it's probably somewhere around 60 pounds of barley that she's just going to throw in her shawl and walk home. It's a ridiculous amount to be able to do that. But he placed a bundle on her, and then he went back to town. When Ruth came to her mother-in-law, Naomi asked, how did it go, my daughter? Then she told her everything Boaz has done for her, and added, he gave me these 6 measures of barley, saying, don't go back to your mother-in-law empty-handed. Then Naomi said, wait, my daughter, until you find out what happens, for the man will not rest until the matter is settled today. So, despite things kind of going differently than expected, Naomi's plan still worked. So Ruth is going to be provided for, and so will Naomi. And Boaz is also kind of showing that they're going to be provided for symbolically by giving them these 6 measures of barley. He's saying, look, I got you, no matter what happens, you're going to be redeemed. So they're in a pretty good place. So now they just have to wait until the next morning to see if this closer relative is going to redeem them or Boaz. They just got to wait until the next morning. Just like you guys are going to have to wait until next week to hear how the story continues. So be here. Or you can read it on your own. That's always a good read. But I know that's all great and all, but what does that have to do with me? It's a great story, leaving a little cliffhanger there. What does it have to do with me? Well, we can see this then, and we can still see it now, is that God is working supernaturally, naturally. He's working supernaturally, naturally. So he's working through people to achieve his plan. So in unnatural ways, he's like, they went to this field to get food, and it just so happened to be Boaz, who just so happened to be related to Naomi. So you can see that God's working kind of in the background here, but through natural ways. So this is just showing that God has a plan to provide for everyone. So he knows he can take care of you. And the story of Ruth is just an example of that. And also I wanted to point out that God's law, it actually enabled this whole story to happen. Because Boaz, he's farming, he's got his crop. He's supposed to leave some of his harvest behind so that, immigrants or poor people can come and kind of get some food off of it to survive. And Boaz was following God's law, which just so happened to make him and Ruth meet. There's nothing supernatural about going into a field and getting some scrap barley, but it's supernatural that it's all seeming to go according to a plan. But that plan is important because of how we view it. So how do we view God's sovereignty? So he's in control of everything. It's his sovereignty. So how do we view that? So we can look at this plan. God's will is going to happen, so I can just lay back and let it happen. I don't have to do anything for it. And yeah, God's plan is going to happen. You just won't be a part of it. Mm-hmm. Which doesn't sound very fun. Mm-hmm. But it's not all negative. So his sovereignty gives us courage to act upon. Mm. So you look in the story, Naomi had this plan. She wanted Ruth to marry Boaz. So she took the initiative to come up with this plan, although it was a weird one. But she came up with something, and then Ruth took it into action to go out and attract Boaz. So they could trust that if everything was going to work for God's will, if they're in line with God's will, then everything will work out if they're going for it. And this also applies to our prayer life. So you could be praying for things to happen, but if you're just kind of praying and then hoping God will do his thing, not looking very good. It doesn't work very well. But let's just say, for example, you have a test coming. You're like, Lord, I really need a good grade. I just really need a good grade. I need a good grade. I need a good grade. So it's a week away, and you're praying. You think you're covered. You're just going to breeze through this test because you got the power of God running through your veins. And you get to the test, and you don't do very good on it. Did God not provide? I asked. Why wouldn't he do that? But you had that week where God could have given you time to study. He would have given you the knowledge of what to study. He would have given you plenty of actions you could have done to prepare for that test. So it goes for anything. Whatever you're praying for, it's one thing to pray for it, but you need to actually put it into action. And there was a lot of talk about a guardian redeemer. You could probably put it together yourself, but who is our guardian redeemer? Jesus. It's Jesus. Mm-hmm. He restores what has been lost. Mm. And if you look, all Ruth had to do to get Boaz to redeem her was ask, hey, will you marry me and redeem my family? And Boaz is like, I got some hurdles to jump through, but we'll get it done. Now with Jesus, he doesn't really have any hurdles to jump through. He already tells us that he's going to redeem us. He's going to be our guardian redeemer. All we have to do is ask. Mm. So that once we ask, we just have to follow what he's telling us to do. We just have to line up our wills. And there's no other closer relative. So Jesus wants to be personal with you. He wants to personally take care of you. And if anybody has the power to do that, it's him. So we have to allow him to do his work through us. So, dear Lord, I just pray that you would be our guardian redeemer. That you would do what you say you're going to do. And that we would be able to listen and then take that, soak it in, and then do the action that comes with it. I pray that you would just reveal to us wherever that is in our life, and that we would be able to give us the strength and the courage to do it. In Jesus' name.